So, first of all, welcome to a very special event tonight as we bring together She Creates and the Social Club. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Natalie, Director of Digital, Social Media and Creative, host of Digitalks, the podcast, and recently founder of the Social Club. I do want to start with a special welcome to country. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pay respect to elders past and present. Of course, some housekeeping to start. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for holding my very, very important things. Housekeeping. The bathrooms, we know where they are. If you are going to get up whilst we're chatting, please, no offence, go around that way. Obviously, food, drinks, everyone's comfortable. After the panel, we will open up to questions at the end, depending on how we're going for time. And of course, we're all about being social, so feel free to snap away, but tag She Creates in the Social Club. But please be mindful of our professional team that are here as well. Just get a good angle. Yeah, I know, right? This is my good side, so I've been put on the wrong side, but anyway. So I'm very excited for tonight's event. For me, collaborating with She Creates was a no-brainer for the Social Club. They're my kind of people. Their aim is to inspire, promote, connect and represent women in creative communications here in SA, which speaks to the Social Club and my intention behind this little brain fart of mine. Social media marketers, where do I start? We are a misunderstood bunch. Now, whether you fell into the industry, it got thrust upon you, or you just bloody love it and what it can do for a brand's presence, I think we can all say that we just want to be contributing positively to the enormous amount of stuff that's on the internet. So tonight, we're pairing up with this dream team of ladies to help with our purpose of making social media social again, as it should be. But of course, I have my amazing panel with me tonight, Caitlin, Jared and Carly. They will be sharing their insights on the industry, wins, losses, thoughts, and reclaiming the social essence of social. I might pipe up with my 2 cents here and there, but I'll try and keep my big fat mouth shut. But first of all, let's get you knowing these guys a little bit better. Give a very warm welcome to Caitlin Jinks, social media lead at the AFP. Caitlin is a media specialist with a career spanning 7 newsrooms and 3 cities. Just a couple. She started out as a local TV reporter, then later an entertainment reporter before moving to BuzzFeed for 3 years. She later ran the social media accounts for New South Wales Police, over 1 million followers, just saying. Then had stints at SA Police and the Department for Education. But most famously, she's currently the social media lead for the AFP. And her work has been profiled by InDaily, the Daily Mail and the Herald Sun and shared throughout pretty much all of our DMs, I'm pretty sure. We all remember the fashion police. So, what I love most about your work, because of course it's about what I think, is that you're truly using socials for what they're meant to be, which is social. You're not selling a product or a service, which I think is really unique as well. And I think a few of us would be pretty jealous that you have the luxury of doing that. But you do have a social responsibility and are on close watch from some of Australia's biggest keyboard warriors, I would suggest. How do you approach engagement and determine where to respond or simply step away from the keyboard?
Yeah, it comes from a few components. So the first most important one is that I have a zero tolerance policy for anything that is racist, homophobic, anything that punches down, anything that could potentially harm or hurt someone from a community that does not deserve that. That's an immediate block. You're out. I don't care. And I will cop the complaint when they submit it. That's fine. They can go on my wall somewhere.
On LinkedIn.
Endorse me for it. So that's the first one, the first component, which is just blanket, that's out, you're done. The other one's when it's about knowing when to have those conversations and be a bit cheeky or maybe push it a bit further than what maybe some people would like or be comfortable with, is when there's just room or opportunity for it. And again, it's not punching down. So if I see an opportunity, and the context is super important as well. So if they're in the comments and they're being playful, or they're saying something that is just a bit silly in general, then that gives a really great opportunity to have that conversation.
They walked right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If someone with the name John Oliver says something that's a bit silly and mean, then I will say something about the Tonight Show with John Oliver, blah, 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 and then we'll have, a bit of banter.
I love it. I love it. I want your job. No, I don't.
No, you don't.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have Carly. I'm going in around a circle. Sorry, Jared, you're next, I promise. Carly Cluse. Carly manages first of all, give her a very round, warm of applause. Now, for those of you who don't know Carly, she's the director at Cluse & Co. Carly manages a portfolio of clients spanning publicly listed and private companies, as well as government agencies with a large presence in the property development sector. Now, she helms the agency, service and creative teams, covering everything from brand development, strategy and advertising. Carly's depth of knowledge stems from her time working in the industry for boutique brand houses, ad agencies and an eclectic mix of clients, products and services before taking the leap into business with her partner. Now, Cluse & Co. is making inroads with high-end productions, ad campaigns with a solid foundation of brand strategy and results-based marketing. So anyone who knows me will know I take my hat off to a fellow agency owner, because it ain't easy. You do amazing work, so thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. What I love about your journey is that you actually started as a digital-first agency and then moved into working with clients on a more holistic base. How did that kind of happen, and how are you communicating the role of socials in the marketing mix to those advertising clients?
Thanks, Nat. For us, I think even before we're even getting into social recommendations, we're really looking at our clients' overall brand and advertising strategy. That really positions us to make the best recommendations. For a long time, just in advertising, I think the larger corporations and advertising agencies, they really undervalued social. But now I think it's a realisation that it can be a key advertising tool. So for us, the main thing is it's also an always-on platform for these clients. It's a constant message, which we leverage and then can also, extend our campaigns, creative ideas across those platforms. The benefit of that as well is you're also getting really fast audience feedback. So, from imagery, colour palettes, ad headlines, all of that, we can take that feedback into their traditional placements and above the line campaigns. So for example, we have a billboard placement come up, we can go to socials, have a look at the data, pick images based on what's performing, making those creative recommendations then with some data behind it. They just absolutely love it. So it really becomes, integral to their advertising campaigns.
I love that because, you compare the cost of a Facebook ad to a billboard, it's a big difference. And if you can find out things that really showcase how you're going to get the best results, it could come down to a font or a colour.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't you? Love it, love it. Now, last but not least, Jared Brown. Jared. Welcome him, Head of Digital at Sometimes Always and Alpha Box and Dice. I'm sick of reading your intro. Working across e-commerce and digital space, both in Australia for over 15 years, Jared has gained experience in a wide variety of industries and businesses across both B2C and B2B, constantly adapting and evolving with e-commerce and digital marketing technology, trends and user behaviour in order to deliver and lead best-in-market solutions that drive meaningful business results. Most famously, Jared was the head of e-commerce and digital at Australian Fashion Labels for 6 years, where he was recognised as a 2019 e-commerce retailer of the year finalist, named one of the 2019 leaders in e-commerce, top 100 all-stars, and added to the 2016 e-commerce ones to watch list. Currently, as I mentioned, he is the head of digital at Sometimes Always, a boutique online bottle shop. Strongly recommend you give them a little follow, have a little sus. Is the Instagram feed looking all right? If it's not,
I was a bit stressed about that today.
tell him. And Alpha Box and Dice, like I mentioned, who also produce wine from McLaren Vale and the Adelaide Hills. anyone who knows me knows that nothing makes me happier than a performance marketer who actually values organic social media. So you could say you were a bit of a token pool in tonight's panel. But tell me, from an e-com perspective, how have you seen the customer journey change with the number of touch points and how social contributes to that end conversion?
Yeah, so I mean, over the 15 years, it's changed quite rapidly.
I should hope so.
I've reflected back a bit today about it and thinking about in the early days, there wasn't much you could do through social that really led back into e-commerce due to the chronological posting. Everything was kind of bottom of the funnel targeted. So, you know, you had status updates, some text
Bring
posts.
back status updates.
Yeah. And like static images, not a whole lot, but because of that chronological thing, you kept getting bumped. So strategically, you just kept posting more. And really, all you could be looking for was something that was time bound. You're looking for an action right then, because as soon as something was posted, it was just getting bumped down. And so everything led into that. So fast forward a little bit, more platforms, more placements, and I guess more ways to deliver content. And I guess everybody got around the concept that one message doesn't really resonate with everybody. So we started to think about what were the placements that would create the results we were looking for. So, you know, if you could do more brand building because the algorithm would hold posts in people's feeds for days, you know, or weeks they do if they're good enough. So therefore, strategically, you're more inclined to actually use brand building through social rather than just bottom of the funnel, I'm trying to get a sale. So that was kind of a good thing, even though people possibly saw it as a bad thing because, you know, you didn't know if your posts were going to show up. But if they were good enough, they probably would. And then now to today, we kind of see social as not just the big five networks, platforms, but it's pretty much any channel that we can communicate with a customer. And it's not just us communicating with the customer, it's the customer communicating with the brand.
Two-way conversation.
Correct. Or them communicating with each other. That all forms the social strategy and the social mix. So that could be things like one-to-one video based off customer lifecycle. It could be interactive video or content commerce. It doesn't stop at the conversion. It's after and forms a circle. So.
And that's the difference between an okay business and an amazing business. I think knowing that it doesn't end at conversion from a social perspective is really, really important. You know, how many times have we seen businesses that don't have a strategy in place for retention and for advocacy? Advocacy is the number one thing that's associated with social. So if you take anything away. But yeah, I love that. And I get your emails, so I haven't deleted them yet.
That's good. Said a few, so.
Well, thank you so much. Let's get stuck in. I'm gonna put it to you. When there are 95 million posts going up on Instagram in any given one day, it takes a lot more for someone to engage with a piece of content. Exactly like you said, we're driven by an algorithm, right? And statistically speaking, we have all had this conversation as well, people are less inclined to like a piece of content or even follow or engage with a brand than I think, and again, statistically, ever before. What do you guys think makes a great brand on social media? What are they doing that makes you stop in your 80 kilometres an hour scroll?
I really love brands that are understanding their audiences and communicating with them accordingly. I think there's something to be said for really striking a chord with who you're speaking with, rather than, you know, if something looks like an ad, we find quite often it's not going to convert. So I think there's absolutely still a place for that sales type messaging, but obviously we're delivering that to people that have already shown a level of intent. We work with brands that, you know, 90% of their content is that awareness, relationship building, connection, and we get really good results from that.
I think my point would be creating some sort of aesthetic that you can own a little bit. not necessarily copying what other people do, but creating something that makes you stand out from people in your industry or the people you're competing with. And often that's quite difficult if you're all selling very, very similar things. So it is important from a brand standpoint to try and create some separation, because that's the thing that will stop someone in a scroll or make them stop to pay attention, and then reverses into building the brand and how people perceive the brand itself. So standing out, I think.
So don't be bloody boring. No one wants to see a picture of your CEO standing next to a banner. No one wants to see a photo of someone in corporate or head
heard it here
office
first.
doing something. No one cares. People care about information, and they care about education, and they care about entertainment. One of the most vital things you can focus on is shares, and that's something that's a really massive lesson I learned from my time at BuzzFeed. I know that BuzzFeed as a company is a bit dated and cringy now, but at the time, it was a massive brand and everyone here knows it.
Should I not be saying that I still follow them on Facebook?
Oh, no, I mean, they're a bit sort of millennial bait now, which is fine, but they're sort of known for being lists, but one of the biggest things they focused on was get people to share this. How can we get people to share? Because that's how you're going to
Shareability
get
is a
it
metric.
far and wide. And that's the thing I focus on the most, is how am I going to get someone to share this? And that's always the biggest driver for me, because that's sort of how I believe you build brand recognition. And then just not being boring within that content, and just having a mix of the things that you have to do, because we all have to post things we do not want. All of us have a CEO or a boss that says, you have to put this, whatever it is, up, and you just go, okay, yep, you pay my bills. And figuring out what else can make it so that you have an algorithm that's filled with good stuff, so that you're not just doing things that you're told to do. That's
I'm
my
going to
hot
play
take.
devil's advocate there, because I hear that 110%. But when that happens, sometimes that post that you were told to do can undo a lot of the work that you've spent hours or months or even years working on. I think our job is to educate people that you can tell me that you want that posted, but you need to be open to hearing my recommendations as the expert as to how we can place that piece of content.
I agree, but I also think, so I think, especially for the AFP, we have to post things that are not something that anyone wants to read about. So we post a lot about child abuse, exploitation, child sexual abuse, really horrible stuff that honestly no one should ever have to read, but it's super vital that we're putting it out there, because that's how you prevent these things from happening, is education. So it's honestly very bizarre having a mix of memes and pop culture mixed with this really abhorrent content. But if you're able to have a strategy that is coherent and has a good, makes sense, that's how you can make the difficult stuff, or the boring stuff, like the CEO posts, blah, 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 blah. You just need to have a strategy in place that's sort of agreed upon and makes sense, and is also in long term as well, so that it's not just this battle every single week going, well, I want to do this, well, you want to do that. So having that strategy in place is super important, and making sure you're educating up as well, because that's obviously the biggest thing, is that people have their 2 cents for everything in social.
I use this analogy all the time, and I probably shouldn't because it's horrible, but when people say, I have Facebook or I have social media, so I'm a social media marketer, I own a scalpel. You do not want me to perform surgery on you. It's going to end very poorly. It's a bit grotesque and a bit morbid, and I'm sorry, but like I said to you, there was a post I saw on LinkedIn today, and it said, asking your social media marketer to do your SEO campaign is like asking your brain surgeon to perform heart surgery. I don't think you're going to be happy with the outcome. And it's not wrong. So yes, I think it's really important to stay in your lane as much as possible. I think we can all safely agree that social media is a rapidly changing beast. And in order to stand out, you really need to be bold and creative, exactly like you've just said, Jared. Why do you think that social media isn't seen to be on the same page as above the line creative? We don't get that same time, budget, or energy.
I think above the line stuff typically, from my understanding, is probably more planned in a bigger project that involves more people. Sometimes I feel like social maybe has stakeholders that feed in but is left to another group to execute it, and possibly the fact that there's real-time feedback on social, whereas a billboard there isn't really. And so someone goes out on the line, says they want to do this thing and it doesn't go so well, everyone's there to see how that went. But if a billboard doesn't go so well, no one really knows. And so it's the critique on it is a lot more visible to people outside, I guess, maybe that team or that realm.
Do you think that stops people in social from feeling like they can be creative because of that critique? Because I think show of hands, has anyone been in an office where everyone knows you're posting on an account and everyone goes, oh, who posted that? And you walk out and you know that everyone's looking at what you've just done. And it is the most humbling. I don't know if that's the right word. It's a really confronting place to be, because you're doing your job and you're doing what you know is right, but everyone else who's got no idea is critiquing your work. But yet there's a giant $100,000 billboard on the road and nobody says anything about that.
Yeah, well, you don't hear what people say. It's not.
There's no Karen on the keyboard. Sorry if anyone's name's Karen. There's no one on a keyboard, making complaints about that. Yeah,
and it's not just there for anyone to chime in and have a look. And so, yeah, that's definitely. But I mean, I guess social media managers, people who post, need to be brave. And if you believe in it, go for it. And even if it gets bad results, because I think anyone who sort of manages those people, if you've got a reason why you've done it and there's solid strategy or backing or an idea or something you were trying to achieve, if they're going to hunt you down for that, then probably it's not necessarily the place for you.
Caitlin and I were having a little conversation offline before. Sometimes in socials, you have to go with your gut. And sometimes you just have to not follow trends necessarily, but there probably is a little bit of element. There might not be an analytical, data-driven reason why you've done something. It's just on brand, or the vibes are just right. How do you explain that to someone who, I'm telling you, the vibes are right? And I think we've all had that. I think everyone's going, ugh. But everyone's had that situation, right? I can't explain to you. It's just good. It just looks right. And it makes our jobs really hard because it's subjective. You and I might look at a piece of creative and I might go, guys, this is it. This is wild. I love it. And then you look at it and go, that's dog shit. It happens.
I think client relationships is a real key part of that. I think ongoing clients where you've built that trust, you've built that respect, you've got those wins on the board, you do the things like occasionally you've got to do the posts that they want. That goes both ways. And I think also leveraging data from what you've done previously to really back in your creative recommendations, looking at what your competitors are doing, getting outside the mold. I think having those conversations are much easier when you've got that initial client relationship and that trust is there. I think it's all relationship based and getting it across the line through those sort of recommendations.
But that goes exactly back to, something that we've talked about as well. It's that value. They value you. They value your opinion, be it an opinion or factual. They value that because you obviously have proven your worth in that area. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that's what we all strive for. It is a little bit of a common misconception that social media is a brand's megaphone and billboard. But as we know it, you can't be everything to everyone. How can we utilise social media to start meaningful conversations with our audience as opposed to talking at them?
I think it probably comes down to the copy. What kind of language are you using? How are you talking to people? Are you talking at them or are you trying to talk with them? And again, that shareability, but also anything that can create a conversation. And then also in the comments, I'm super active in the comments. I never just post something and walk away. I will commit an hour minimum.
Post and ghost?
Never, ever, ever, ever. I will sit in the comments and I will just sit there for minimum an hour and generate conversation within that comment section.
How long does it generally take for you to post? How long do you start getting people popping up?
couple minutes sometimes. It depends on the post. Some posts,
We all want the engagement of the AFP.
well, comes with a strategy, comes with plugging away at it for a long time. There are posts where you will get nothing and you have to work harder for it. But that's why the lighthearted stuff exists, because then it generates just more visibility in the algorithm in general, blah, 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 blah. But the comment section is super important. So why would you want to start a conversation and by having a post and then walk away? It makes no sense.
But you also, you take that situation, that scenario into a real life conversation. It's like walking to a group of people and being like, hey guys, it's pretty cold out there tonight. And then just going, I'm walking away. Why would you do that?
It doesn't, it takes a lot of time. Manually, it takes a lot of time. I don't automate any comments. I moderate every single comment across 5 platforms every single day of my life. And it's...
She still looks so good.
I'm very mentally ill. So it's very difficult, but it pays off. And I think as well, having that forethought to also have talking points prepared. So if you do have maybe a client or a boss who maybe doesn't trust you as much and you know something is going to generate a tricky conversation, having pre-prepared, signed off talking points that you can talk about. So for example, maybe we're saying we're looking to recruit females in their 30s. My brain just analyzes every single sentence, every single word, and I am thinking of the PR disaster that's within it and getting signed off and saying, okay, well, is this sexist? What does this mean? We need to have things signed off so we can so that you're not then going and taking a day to get a response from someone higher up who might have the answer. So having everything signed off and pre-prepared and knowing every possible outcome before you post.
I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things, because there is an element, correct me if I'm wrong guys, I don't know if we were talking about it I was talking about it with you guys or somebody else, about the crisis plans with social media. You need to almost think of worst case scenario sometimes, because you can't control what someone's going to comment or what something's going to be said. So you do need to kind of be thinking on that front foot. I mean, we've all seen the memes and it's like the social team versus legal. And it's like by the time it gets approved, the meme is done. It's not funny anymore. But, you know, particularly with things that need to be time sensitive, we don't have the luxury of time when it comes to social media. And I think for you, particularly with your role, if you were to wait, 2 to 3 business days to respond to something, that's not appropriate. Exactly. They'll be DMing you. They'll find where you live. Not. We did also talk about the importance of listening to what people are saying and being able to actually get on your audience's level, because I think it's very easy for us as marketers as well to kind of go, well, we think this is what that demographic is interested in, or we think that people on Facebook like this. In a conversation we had, Carly, about, actually being in Facebook groups and just being a little secret squirrel and seeing what people are saying. How valuable is that to you?
Yeah, so the nature of the property industry, there's a lot of community groups, there's a lot of chatter. We use those groups as, like you say, little spies to see what people are saying about the brand, their experiences, what are their pain points, which we can take that and then, we're planning next month's content, do not talk about parking, We can really take a lot of insight from that to inform the content that we're posting, almost negating those issues happening.
Which is really important as well, because I think, one of the biggest things with social, we talked about, the purpose behind what you're posting. Sometimes it's as simple as making that end consumer feel seen or heard. How many times do you scroll and you see something and you're like, oh, that's me. Someone else sees me for who I am. Or if it's like an emotive quote and you're like, oh, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine because someone else feels like that. Sometimes that's all it takes. And I think sometimes we get a little bit caught up with the content that we're putting out, that it needs to be such high value and it needs to be super, super educational or, completely reinventing the wheel. No, just get on your audience's level, because put yourself in their shoes where they're at during that process. When I'm scrolling Instagram, and I don't know about you guys, I'm not looking for property development information. Absolutely not.
It's all about striking that emotional chord as well, using imagery that bridges that connection, invokes nostalgia in people. They want to share that, they want to tag their friends and go, hey, remember this. And that's really unique, I think, in a lot of organic strategies. Going down that path and keeping the sales messaging out of it, it doesn't want to look like an ad. It's all about that relationship building.
I completely agree. My team are probably sitting there going, oh my God, Nat, we've heard you say that so many times. They're sick of me. As we know in marketing, nothing works in isolation. And this is another thing that I pipe on about a bit. But why is it so important to understand how your offline talks to your online? Again, it's something that we've talked about as a group. How do you think they can best work together?
I always try and focus on making sure there's cohesive messaging across all the platforms. It's pretty simple stuff, but I think it's important.
You say simple, but...
Well, this is pretty simple, I think. It's just like making sure if we're doing something through email, that there is corresponding things on site. Same with social, it all marries up. So if people take whatever journey they do through the messaging, they don't end up at a dead end, and it goes together. And then probably that extends through to making sure, I'm always coming from an e-commerce perspective, but...
that's why you're here.
Yeah, that is. But making sure that like the post-purchase experience, the delivery experience, unboxing experience actually matches up to what people are seeing on social or what they're seeing on site. So you don't want to got a pretty Instagram, site looks good, but then when it comes in this terrible packaging, and then all of a sudden it's disrupted.
I'm really glad you've said that, because how many times have we seen an influencer or creator unbox something and it's so nice, and then I order it and mine's in a beige box. Where's my bow? That is a really big issue. And we had this issue when I was working at Riderwear. We would specifically gift things for influencers and they would look beautiful. And then the general consumer buys it and goes, well, I didn't get that. It's so important that you're setting a realistic expectation through social. And I think the correlation between customer service and social media is paramount.
Yeah, totally. I think being the best at those sorts of things, that's again to me is a social channel. The way your customer service, customer care talks to people is as important as responding to comments on Instagram, even more important in some ways because they're coming to you normally when there's a problem. So you've always when there's a problem. But it can make the difference between a loyal customer and not a loyal customer, and we see it every day that if we're responding before people get upset, all those sorts of things, it feeds into them being loyalists, and then that's that person-to-person, word-of-mouth social piece that they're spreading the word of your business to other people because they had a good experience. So I think it's the social piece goes further than just what comes to mind straight away when we think about it.
Instagram feed.
Yeah, it's more than that.
It's the experience. And like you said as well, it's how we talk to our friends. I don't want to be... All right, I'm going to admit it. The only time I ordered from Adore Beauty was because I wanted the mini Tim Tam. But how many times do you see people posting when their Adore Beauty order arrives and it's got the mini Tim Tam? They are consistent. It's every single time. Caitlin, I see you nodding. It's so important as a part of what they do, and everyone's posting things. It's got nothing to do with their brand or product, but it's a consistency and it's part of their customer service strategy. And I think that is so important because it all works together. I think even down to your packaging, I think if you haven't bought anything from Sometimes Always, do it. Do we have a discount code? Is it Jared 10 at the
Free one
checkout?
for you. Who else has bought something?
But it's nice, you want it to be consistent with what you're seeing on socials. And I think if a brand is being super luxe and they're trying to be perceived in a certain way, and then you order something as a paying customer and it doesn't meet that standard or your expectation, it's disappointing. It even comes down to, I think, and I could be being dramatic, but no, I'm not going to say it. No, I'm digging myself a hole. We digress.
Everyone's curious now. Come on. Go on.
Don't egg me on, I'll do it. Do you guys think let's get deep here. Do you guys think that because the perception and perhaps misconception that you can see social success without brand strategy makes demonstrating our value harder? I'll give the tricky one to Caitlin.
What do you mean?
Do you think that because people think that social's easy and social you can just slap things up and you can build a brand, that people don't actually value what we do in the sense of how it contributes to the bigger brand picture?
Yeah, I do. And I think a comparable example is a recent one. I'm a big horror fan, and Talk to Me, made by two Adelaide twins.
Yeah, the
Raka Raka Boys.
Yeah.
So they were YouTubers, and when it was announced that they
Did you see that underwater car?
yes,
That was iconic. YouTube it, Google it.
when it was announced that they were making a horror movie, there was already such stigma around the idea of YouTubers as if like, good luck guys. Now it's the highest grossing A24 horror movie of all time and people are sort of shocked by that, and it's now being boosted as this big success story because people can't quite believe that a YouTuber could create something so successful.
Because they have this in their head.
They have it in their head. Same thing happens with Mr. Beast as well, who's obviously the most successful YouTuber, blah, 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 blah.
Do you watch YouTube?
You should. It's the biggest legacy platform, I'm telling you. But Mr. Beast is another good example. He has a higher reach and viewership than most massive movies out there and Netflix shows. And he recently said, like, why would I bother making a movie when I have more viewers on my channel and I get paid more than they do? But there's still this stigma around TikTokers and YouTubers because we all think, oh, well, I've got a phone, I can do that. Try it, good luck. Good luck. It's such a small percentage of people who are so successful at content creation and can do it for a living because it is an art and it is difficult. We're not doing brain surgery, we're not nurses, we're not teachers. Honestly, at the end of the day, it isn't a bloody hard job, to be honest with you.
No, we're not saving lives.
We're not saving the world, but it should be taken more seriously as a service because it is difficult to do correctly. And everyone wants to be Duolingo, but no one knows how to actually pull it off in their own way because it takes skill and strategy.
100%. And I love Duolingo.
And it's nuanced as well. People don't actually realise what the marketing, how it's affecting them and what it's causing them to do. So like, I got a phone, I can post a thing, but they're not really understanding that they're possibly being manipulated in a certain direction or driving some sort of result with what they're seeing. And that's the whole thing. Go to the art gallery, I can paint that. Yeah.
All right, Picasso. But hasn't, like, what's that thing like when you're a kid? It's like when you get told, okay, you're going to see a yellow punch buggy. Now you're going to see like a million of them. That's social media to a degree. You're literally teaching it what you want to see. I love when I get a really good ad. And I love when it's exactly what I was looking for. I'm like, cool, I'm going to buy that. I don't understand people that say I don't want to be tracked. I find that...
Track me.
Track me. I give
Track
you
me.
all my cookies.
Makes life better, right? I want to go to Bali. Hey, there's Bali everywhere.
It's the best.
You just say whatever you want at your phone on the kitchen table and
It's 100% listening.
it does the research for you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So like we either embrace it and we love it, but it's also about doing it, I think, respectfully. And I think this is the whole thing about as organic social media marketers, and obviously that's my area of expertise, I do take a level of moral compass on board with everything that I put out into the shitosphere. You know, there's so much crap out there and I don't want to be contributing more crap. I want it to be adding something to someone else's day, not just ticking a box because I have to meet my 10-post deliverable or something like that. And I think we have a responsibility as well, but that's just me. Social media is a brand marketing effort, as we've said, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. So going back to what we've said, it does take time and it doesn't happen all overnight, but people often get caught up in the shiny new things. What would you prefer that people measured?
I like this one. You know, talking vanity metrics, I think in terms of measurement for our clients, we always want to bring it back to some sort of business outcome. that there's a result. You know, often you have clients that they want likes, they want followers, but we really need to get into the weeds with them early with their KPIs on what is this going to achieve for you? You know, what are the business results? What are the business outcomes? And tying all of our measurement back to that. It doesn't always have to be financial, but I think from the outset, it's so important to have those conversations, or you do end up with the clients of, why aren't I at 1 million likes, you know? So
Because
always,
you're an accountant.
always a business result.
In saying that, how do you keep your clients accountable for providing you with those numbers? Because I think it's very easy for us as contractors or service providers to be held very accountable for, you know, what success have we seen? Can we put it back on them and say, all right, well, you actually need to provide me with your number of X, Y, Z, because I can't determine if my strategy is in fact working unless I have these things from you.
I love a workshop.
Yeah.
So upfront client workshops, you've got to extract all of that from them, and you really need to understand your client, your industry.
And what they value.
Absolutely. And I think documenting that up front, it just makes it seamless the whole way through. Obviously you have your hiccups, but always coming back to that as well when we're getting off track, you know, why aren't we getting X, Y, Z? Well, no, let's come back to what that KPI was. Are we hitting that? And they change. So that needs to be workshop regularly, you know, your monthly reporting, but quarterly catch-ups. And that also feeds into building those client relationships and getting that trust.
Caitlin, because I'm just going to put this on you, Soz, because obviously you don't have a product or service, how do you measure success?
It depends on what it can change. So, for example, sometimes it's based on perhaps we need more people in recruitment. Maybe we need more numbers within policing. I personally tend to measure by reach and engagement, because I want to know the audience size, and then also how many people in that audience are actually taking an action and engaging with us. But also, like, not selling a product is a pro and a con, because then it can be more difficult to measure what people might want and what their expectations are, because you don't have a solid number of sales or anything like that. So
It's funny because it's like a blessing and a curse, right? Because then on the
Yeah.
other side, you've got Jared, who's driven by the numbers. Do you feel like sometimes, Jared, the numbers can almost stray you? Like, I think we've had this conversation before about AFL, and like when you get addicted to the e-com numbers and you start doing things that are totally against, I guess, your better judgment or maybe your moral compass, because the revenue's coming in, but you have to kind of step back and go, what's the brand at?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100% guilty earlier in my career of being so last click focused that it was insane. And I'd argue with all the marketing team and be like, just didn't do anything. Like, we didn't see anything off it. But now I've matured, and
Thank God for that.
Thank God for that. And, you know, looking at the path to purchase, seeing where all these things fit in, all the different steps, all the different channels, and actually being real and thinking about how I purchase. And it's a journey for me, and it takes me forever to purchase anything.
It's a journey for everyone. How many, like, I've got about 30 tabs open with carts full that I have no intentions of buying.
But now I've come around to understand that content that isn't bottom funnel driven actually really does make a difference to the customers. And it's been really weird because unfortunately I have to be in some content for Sometimes Always. And then when we do
Say that, but then when you're in front of the camera, you're like, I'm Jared.
it doesn't feel like that. But people come in for meetings and things like that, and I introduce myself, and then they say, "Oh, I feel like I know you from the content," and I'm like, "Oh God!" But it started to bed in that, you know, all these things that are completely not bottom funnel driven, they're just brand building, actually stick with people possibly more than the sale or the buy this product or the scarcity tactic or whatever it might be that like gets used. And so I've become more and more invested in trying to create the content that people want to see to push the brand forward.
But I think what you're doing is it's a brand story.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to, right? You know, the best Venn diagram I've seen is what you want to say, what they want to see, your content somewhere in the middle. You've obviously got to get your message across, right? But you also need to make sure that you're actually giving the people what they want, because there's no point in you sitting here and just blasting things because they're not going to pick up what you're putting down.
But to put your point before, the best content we've created most of the time is when we've asked a question through like a segment or something we've come up with, and then we create that content to that. I don't think it drives a sale, but it has the greatest engagement. And so you know that knowing what I know now, the sale comes later because you're top of mind and you establish that rapport with the customer.
Because you're reducing friction.
Yeah.
They don't need to ask you anymore. Like, again, if I challenge everyone, the next time they buy something, actually think about, what did it take me to get to this point? Because I think if you're actually really honest with yourself and think about all the touch points, or, you know, did you ask a friend, have you bought from there? Was the sizing accurate? Just thinking about clothes. All of those things, you'll actually realize that organic social probably was a huge contributor to that.
I think about the last thing I bought, and it's not.
Tell us. Okay. All right. I've gone rogue. What was the last thing you bought, and how did you buy it?
36 copies of Sabrina's Secrets from eBay.
That. I was going to message you because I used to have it as a subscription. What made you buy that?
I don't, probably being in the comments for too long. I don't know. You go now.
It's not a whole thing, but...
Can I ask what your eBay experience was like versus Amazon?
Oh, eBay all the way, 100%. The last thing I bought before the Sabrina's Secrets was a Video Easy shirt. Different sellers, and they were so fast. Like, get 5-star ratings. eBay. I don't like shopping from Amazon.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hope there's no one from Amazon here. I highly doubt it, but you know.
Hope that doesn't impact their sales.
No.
Jeff will be fine.
Yeah. I think Jeff is currently with Kris Jenner somewhere in Italy, so I think he's fine. What was the last thing you bought, Jared?
Oh God.
No, e-commerce only.
No, look. I just started doing jiu-jitsu, and so I bought a kimono, like the kit you wear. So that's what I bought.
Where did you buy it? Where'd you buy it from?
It's from a store called Just Jits. Dead set.
Thank God you're here.
It looks real nice, so it's a fancy one with like...
Okay.
I couldn't tell you because I'm a serial online shopper, like first name basis with a postie. So, yeah, anything and everything.
What motivates you to buy things online?
Well, for me, it's time, but I'm also like you. Like, I appreciate the game of being chased with ads. So if, you know, someone sends me something, I appreciate that, yeah, you've got me, so I will purchase.
You know, Yeah,
You got me.
Oh. But you know what? Saying that, we were talking before about, like, you know, knowing the role of, like, what you're trying to achieve from your socials. And obviously for some businesses, it might just be having a portfolio and showing that you're actually legit. You're not fake. You're not a catfish. But I keep getting ads from that Primi.com. Has anyone else seen that? I knew you would because I probably sent it to you. It looked really, really good. And I went on it and the website was horrible and the organic social was disgraceful. But they must be spending so much on ads and not converting.
Not Shine.
No, Shein. Oh, God. No, Shein, you buy one thing and you end up with, like... Okay, welcome to tonight's episode of Designer Brands Said Incorrectly. We digress. It's fine. Don't need it. No. So, that is my. Oh no, guys, I got a puppy last night. I'm tired. Right? So, we have also talked about the fact that social media is on 24/7, right? How do you guys manage the demand? And I think also balancing work life, personal life. What advice do you have? If you have any, I've probably got none.
Look, we're all very different roles, but from an agency point of view, I've been doing this for a very long time and I have learned the hard way that life balance is very important. I think when you're younger, it's very hard to say no sometimes. Establishing those boundaries and, what's important to you is really critical in your career. Again, social media isn't all the time. It doesn't mean that you have to be, but it's also, there are times where you're going to have to put in the work and you're going to work hard. So it's understanding your balance and communicating that with employers, clients, and sticking to it.
What I find challenging is, and this is just from my past life, because people don't understand the work that goes into it necessarily, they don't realise when you're saying I'm overworked or perhaps I might need a pay rise. I said it. And it's really hard to kind of justify those conversations. What advice do you have for Carly 10 years ago?
Well, we're all in a service-based industry, and I think proving your worth and your value as a service is critical, and continuing to add value. So, while you may feel burnt out or you're deserving of these things, you also need to be constantly adding value to your employer, to your client, to have the confidence to go forward and, ask for that pay rise and just go for it.
Yeah, I love that. Jared, how do you manage it? Do you sit and watch Shopify go ding?
I'm a complete psycho. I'm a bit obsessive, so I watch things I have forever, all the time. I get every transactional email in my email. I look at every single one of them. That's how I learn what's happening. So that's fine.
I'm anxious now, but anyway, yeah.
That, I feel, I'm like, that's
Okay,
just...
guys, what not to do?
No, but that's my personality. It doesn't affect me. I go to sleep and I wake up and it doesn't stress me out.
So if you haven't had, okay, I'm going to ask you the hard question. So if you don't get a whole bunch of emails or you post a piece of content that isn't as well received as you anticipated, that doesn't bother you?
Not really. I just think about why it might not have been and what we can do different next time. And I just think sometimes content is received in different ways. Some generates likes and makes people talk about it. Other people, it makes them think. Other times it drives them to make a purchase. And
Can you be my boss?
Sure.
No, I don't want to work for you.
Yeah, I guess I'm probably just ambitious, and so that's why I'm so into it. And I want to know everything about the customer, and I want to make better decisions for the business. So that's why I want to be across it. But the tip I would have would be, most people who work in the same business all have logins to the social accounts, and what we often do is just ask someone to keep an eye on it, even if it's your thing. Just say, would you mind watching it tonight if something's happening, and share the load a little bit. It works for me, might not work for you, but we're all pretty, it's fairly small business, but all I say is like put out the fire if there's a fire, or contact me so that I can chill out, or I'm out to dinner. But the team are across it, and it's just not really a big deal where I work normally.
So if it's an instance where it's like, hey, the social media manager's on leave or whatever, is there like a little bit of a rule book on how you handle said fires?
In wine, there's not really many fires. And to be fair, in fashion, there wasn't heaps of fires either. It was mostly the dress didn't get there in time and someone was...
That is a crisis.
That is a crisis, I understand, but you shouldn't have ordered it yesterday. And same with the wine, sometimes they get smashy, but mostly it's just about pacifying people.
Sometimes the box is saturated.
Yeah,
Fine, just drink it.
People like to throw boxes with wine in it, it would seem, especially Careers Please. But that's okay. I think mostly it's just, I like to respond to customers quickly because I think that's really important. I think the longer is between a customer reaching out to you and you getting back to them, the anger grows.
That's proven.
And it can be a really terrible thing, but if we're back to them in 20 minutes or half an hour, people are, they heard me, it's going to be okay.
But this is what I'm saying, it's the whole seen and heard thing. Whether it's on the public sphere, whether it's on your feed or something, or it's literally a message. I just want you to know, like, if I'm DMing you, it's obviously important, or maybe not. But the response time is an indicator as to whether this business gives a shit about their customer.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, with the value of what people are purchasing, it seems like the stress goes up as well. obviously, because they think they're going to lose it. So you can really win customers for life out of bad situations through the communications on those channels. And weirdly, some people like to write on Facebook Messenger as their means of communication about a problem, you know.
What is that about?
I don't know.
Do you?
You do?
Really?
Generational, perhaps.
See, I'll always email support.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Some people like to.
Respectful of people's social media usage.
Yeah, and some people do their problems through Instagram. I don't know. Like, it's just got to be on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I find it hard to step away because I feel like I'm always having to constantly be watching what everyone else is doing and trying to learn and always be on, because if someone else gets onto something before I am, then am I not good at what I do? And it just creates this massive snowball around, I guess, your self-worth, I think, a little bit. And because, I don't know, admittedly, I spend a lot of time on social media. You don't want to know my screen time. I don't look at it in the sense of like comparing myself to people. That's long gone. I used to create influencers for a living, so I understand it's all bullshit. But what I do is I'm always consuming things that I don't know how to switch off. And I think that's what I struggle with, the not being able to switch off, to the point where I'm driving down a road and I see a bus stop or I see a billboard and I'm thinking about how does that fit into their marketing strategy? And it's like, woman, like, what is wrong with you? And I think it's hard because a lot of other careers, I don't think they do that.
Maybe because within creative and marketing, you're kind of always searching for a new idea because you can't run the same thing over and over again because it just stops working. So I think if you have that sort of brain, you are always like digesting what's around you and saying, how is that applicable for what I do? How can I spin that? And especially if you like it.
So true. I will tell a little story. When Cassandra and I were in Paris with Evian? And we're in this train station and we see this Evian water. I think we spent more on water than we did on bloody accommodation in Europe, but anyway. And what did it say? It said...
It had like a baby, it was a baby dressed on human clothes, and it was sort of like Evian basically like makes you live longer.
Yeah. It was just so simple, but it was so cool. It was this giant thing in a train station and we were just like, did you see that? That was the best. And it's no, you did see it. You weren't there. You weren't with us. But, you know, I don't think we realise how the things that we're seeing in our everyday are actually resonating with us and how they're actually impacting the decisions that we do make on a day-to-day basis. I do want to ask, because I think it's, you know, the burning questions, what is something that you wish someone knew about social media, or someone hiring for a social media role, or even an agency or a freelancer? What do you wish they knew?
I don't really care what people outside of the industry think, because I don't sit around thinking about teachers or nurses or anything like that. But within the industry, I think people hiring for social media managers should know specifically what they're looking for, because you might see a job ad and it will list a bunch of different things, and then maybe you do the interview and then find out that they actually realise, oh, no, we don't want an organic content creator. Maybe you just want like a videographer. Or maybe you should have sat down and figured out what your wants and needs were instead of asking for a unicorn, because that doesn't exist. You're going to get a generalist who doesn't know how to specialise in some things, and you need to understand that. I just think...
Correct.
I think it's just, that's an industry specific thing. And I think it is because, I mean, social media, as we know, is sort of really only about 10, 15-ish years old. So it's still, it's a teenager, it's growing. So it's just sort of a byproduct of it being young. And people still sort of looking down on the industry as a whole. Like the Streamy Awards are still kind of got a bit of a, that's a bit cringy thing, but I think probably in 10 years they might sort of be competitive with other massive award ceremonies.
I think if they're consistent, I think if they keep going, because it'd be very easy for them to go, fuck, this is too hard.
And I think as well, because it's still rare to see social media content creators, influencers transition to the mainstream in ways that they are sort of now, like the Raka Raka Boys. Mr. Beast has sort of done it, PewDiePie sort of did it, Addison Rae is transitioning over, Charli D'Amelio has her own reality show. Like, it's
doesn't
starting.
Addison Rae do though?
Release an album because it took her that long. But I think it's more just it comes with the time. I think as well, even within the industry, when I talk about social media with people, it is often people assume that you are a freelancer or you work at an agency, when every single brand from Commonwealth Bank to anything really, Aldi, has social media managers in-house
social media for
on staff.
Aldi.
I mean, you could if you wanted to.
I want to be the Twitter manager, not Twitter, X manager for Wendy's in America. That'd be so much fun.
Well, I'm not calling it X.
I refuse.
But I think even within the industry, understanding that there are different roles. I see so many freelancers, but no one really talks about the people who are in-house often, and there is a misunderstanding about what that entails and different roles and expectations, and it is just so varied.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
I would definitely agree with that.
That's a lot, sorry.
I'm going to unpack that. I love that.
I think for me, it's stop lumping it into one thing. Like if you can liken it to a design studio, you've got your finished artist, you've got your graphic designer, you've got your copywriter, you've got all these different levels of skill. Too often when people are looking for social media employees, they think they're going to be able to do it all. And the reality is it's a craft and there's layers and levels to it, and stop trying to pigeonhole it all onto one job role.
And Canva doesn't make you a graphic designer.
I literally said this. Sorry to anyone.
I love it. I think, admittedly, do not get me wrong, it is a fantastic tool and it is a game changer. It makes doing things quickly amazing. But my graphic designer is an asset. And she's fantastic, and I would not get rid of her for a second, because the reality is I challenge you guys, when you're scrolling through your Instagram feed, how many times can you spot a Canva template? It's actually disturbing. Come on, change the font.
Which I think that all feeds into why social media is devalued, because anyone can contribute and the content level varies, but that also poses an opportunity to rise above that, and your creative can get cut through when you actually put the time and effort and the right people and resources and stop trying to shortcut everything.
Quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
Don't have too much to add, but I just think that people who work specifically in social media should be included in wider business groups and meetings. We see a lot of success by having the people who work on social media feeding into customer experience at large. So that's packaging discussions, that's warehouse, that's ops-based things around shipping, because sometimes a lot of that information is stored within those people, but it never actually makes it out of their brain into the places where it can change things.
Totally.
Or even down to product and product development. There's just you gather so much when you spend so much time focusing on your brand or your industry inside social, and sometimes you are kind of weirdly siloed into that the knowledge that a person that works in that doesn't get out. And I feel like management should include these people more into broader strategy.
I couldn't agree more. I think at the end of the day, social media is a social listening tool. And when you're actively on an account day in, day out, you are seeing what the people are telling you. You're seeing what kind, whether a product's getting more engagement than another one, whether a style of photography, there are so many telltale signs that don't actually probably have anything to do with maybe metrics per se, but it gives you an insight as to how you can best communicate with your customer on a completely different level. So I completely agree with that. I'm not sure how we're going for time. I think we should, I think we should open up to questions. The fun's are, of course, Elise wants to.
I'm Lana. My question is for Caitlin, but also open to you guys as well. I am in
I know her.
a non-product base. I work for government, and we are very much an industry, talking to industry, and it's in defence. So we don't get a lot of comments, but the ones we do are horrid. And I guess I'm at the point where I would like to start having those conversations where I want to have a bit more fun and be entertaining. What would be your number one tip for starting that with those higher up? Because it is very legacy based at the moment. It is all talking to our audience, and it's quite frankly, it's awful. So I just want to get the conversation rolling, I guess.
Yeah, I would say frame it as if it's for what they want to achieve. So see what do they want, and if they come to you and they say, well, we want 1 million followers, it doesn't matter how outlandish whatever it is that they ask for, it's probably going to be something like, well, we want more engagement, or we want 10,000 more followers, blah, 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 blah. And then say, okay, well, this is what we have to do to get there. And then just have those case studies ready, and you can use existing government organizations.
AFP.
You could use that, but also Bureau of Statistics do a good job, CSIRO do a good job. There are quite a few existing ones that you could just pull together.
ATO could do a better job.
I don't think I've ever seen them on social. They're very nice on the phone though, but
Oh, I'm glad you think they're nice on the phone, because I've had other
they
experiences.
helped me do my tax return. But putting forward a case study, and I find that within government and talking to higher ups and the stakeholders, blah, 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 having the sort of statistics on paper and having the numbers and having it in front of them, and basically saying, if this is what you want, this is what we need to get there, how do you feel about it? And then 9 times out of 10 they go, okay, cool, let's do that. But I guess sort of really emphasizing that there is risk involved, because even though I've been doing, even in the police social media space, which is very niche for a while now, I will still get sort of a little bit of fear from maybe higher ups who are going, whoa, what was that? So you always have to sort of think of the worst case and be able to back yourself. But I find that putting in their court and then giving them the stats as well.
We'll keep an eye on defences. I want to see some comment banter.
Also, you can talk to me on LinkedIn, because we can do government meetings.
Any other questions?
I'm going to have to give you the mic. I'm sorry, I've been told.
Thank you. My question is for 3 of you to see what's your relationship with these scheduling platforms, because now that you're talking about government organization, I work for one of them, and they are very strict with the brand guideline and all the content that you may share and all the copy and that kind of things. And they are, like, I've been working with them for a year, and I haven't had to use those ones, but now they're asking me, and I find it quite challenging to start like scheduling everything. I'm very manual, like kind of doing reels is more manual, and we get more engagement when you do it manually in the app rather than just get the video done in a different app and then just uploading into the app. So my question is, how is your relationship with these scheduling platforms, and if you think it is a good resource for social media, or your relationship is bad as mine?
I don't schedule, so...
Yeah, I use Scared. I don't know. Is anyone else? Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah. There's a couple. Is there any Scaeds? All right. Oh yeah, a couple of Scaeds. I mean, it was. I like their link in bio thing. Scared. SKED. Because we're quite content heavy, a lot of photos, and don't use all of them come out of our studio, and so it's actually a really nice place to organise all the content. And so a lot of ours is colour based, and so there's all in coloured files inside there. And so for me and the team, it's kind of workflow. It works quite nicely, and I mean, I think they're kind of all the same. I just picked it for features that I wanted specifically. I don't post reels through there. Yeah. It's really just for feed posts and just set them up for the weekend or those sorts of things. And it has the little cutesy planner, so you can make sure it looks pretty, which is important. It is. So yeah, Sked is my pick, but I haven't done any broad searching for a while, which I'm probably due to do, because I like changing things. So.
I do schedule mainly for the workflows. I think client visibility is really important, and getting formal approvals and sign-offs can alleviate a lot of issues. Also, when you're dealing with a lot of different accounts, ad hoc doesn't really work in that scenario. So I would recommend it more for your static activity. Videos can be tricky, especially, picking frames and everything for photos. So we use Loomly, which is great. Clients love it. And it's more from an efficiency and organisation perspective for me.
I'll throw a spanner in the works later. I really like later for analytics. It gives you a much better visual representation as opposed to just getting from the app. And personally, I don't know about anyone else, but the analytics that Meta is displaying across Instagram, Facebook, is sweet. I think it's wrong. Just add up. There's been so many times our team have been looking at monthly reports going, I'm not good at maths. This is what I'm like. So I think there's a couple of things that aren't quite there.
Does it later do competitor analysis?
Yeah, it gives you like an industry benchmarks and things like that. Personally, I'd rather look at that stuff manually. But I also like later for the content storage piece. For me, that's how I manage our account. I chuck everything in there and then I can push the plan. But yeah, I think it's just anything that you know can be scheduled, schedule it.
Thank you.
Hello, my question's not for anyone in particular. It's more so about ad creative and what you're finding that is working really well right now. I think my biggest challenge at the moment is educating creatives that an ad is different from a TVC, particularly in an agency, and trying to bring them along on that journey and really understanding how to put an ad together that performs well but is also meeting the creative brief. So I'd love to understand like what you're seeing from what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and what you think is working at the moment.
I think there's absolutely a place for multiple variations of creative. So obviously you've got, high level awareness, which is more working into that relationship building, non-sales, non-retail, which is probably going to vary from those. Is it more like retail campaigns that you're sort of working on with them?
No, I guess it's just more so like I understand what works digitally. It's sort of more... I guess what are you seeing trend-wise that's actually performing really well, and how do you sort of bring creatives on that journey to understand that a TVC is different to an ad on Facebook or Instagram?
Yeah, absolutely multiple variations, I think. And then also there's a whole bunch of things to consider. Your length of a TVC is very different to what you're going to be putting in your social channels. So I think it's having those open conversations as well, and a bit of probably education on the platforms and why we have different formats. And then I think a huge piece is, and we've had this with creatives we worked with, run the content that they want to run. Take it back and show them that it didn't work. And how do we do this better? Take the insights on board, evolve the digital content based on feedback from those campaigns, and more often than not it's receptive because, well, here's the data, here's how we need to frame it, let's work it for the platform.
Yeah, agree with that. And I think as well, like, I think we all can pretty openly say that the best kind of ad creative at the moment is more raw and authentic user generated style as opposed to TVC style. When that pops up in your feed, it just doesn't appeal to us. We're not at that place in the customer journey when we're looking at it. And it's hard to, I get it, because it's hard to talk to creators because they've got a lot of pride around the work they're creating, and they're like, this is what we were briefed, and it needs to be top notch because that's what we're trying to achieve. But social's another ball game, and they all shoot in landscape. Well, sorry, I need a portrait. No one rotates their phone anymore. I don't even know how to do that.
Point on that, like even with your video and TVC into digital, like it's very different. With video and social, you've really got a very small window to engage someone in the first couple of seconds. So, TVC traditionally, you've got your messaging at the end. You want someone to go all the way through to get that last brand message. With social, it's completely different. It's almost flipped. It's completely flipped. So, and I think you also need to be planning, like you say, for those placements. Horizontal still has purpose in, your YouTubes and your websites and TVC, but it's all vertical for social now. So you also got to factor that in.
You probably would have found this with I don't know if anyone works with real estate brands, obviously in property. Real estate property videos traditionally are boring as batshit. You've got like 20 seconds and then they start talking. It's like, you lost me. You've got 3 seconds. They have to evolve to actually be interesting because nobody cares. They also shoot them in landscape. So then by the time you crop them in portrait, I see a screen door. That's all I can see. That's not selling me the best parts of the house. So you've really got to shoot with intention based on the output, which is, you know, I think that's where maybe it's getting missed. Any other questions?
What is one piece of advice that you wish someone gave you when you entered the social media industry?
Talk to Fair Work. Personally, I fell into it because it didn't exist when I was, I mean, it existed, like I was a MySpace girly, but it didn't PC for PC, it wasn't a thing when I was studying at university, so I kind of drifted into it because originally I was a TV journo and I wanted to work in that space, but I loved the immediacy of social, so I just drifted over. I think maybe look for a mentor, maybe someone in the industry who can help you. And I think it's really important to have that in the workplace you're in as well, because social just constantly evolves. And if you don't have someone who knows more than you, who can work with you, I think your growth can get stunted a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, stay curious. Have another account, maybe that's not your work account or your personal account, and try things. And experiment, and you know, if you hear things on podcasts that you think might work, or you have a concept, you can trial it through something that bears no consequence, and you might discover something really cool. And I guess sometimes you've got to go backwards to go forwards. Some of the things that used to work in yesteryear are starting to work again, like just text-based. I was reading about that the other day, that just, yeah, so like people would say, why would you do that? There's no image, there's no hook. Things go around, but I'd probably find something you're interested in that's outside of work and outside of personal, and see how you can grow some accounts.
I think definitely get outside the box with your ideas. I think we are in social media so saturated by content, and it's very easy to, you know, take inspiration from what everyone else is doing. Absolutely take the inspiration, but put your own spin on it. I think authenticity and innovation in our industry is so important.
We had a really good conversation. We had a good conversation about it's amazing, and it's great that we can get so inspired by so many different pieces of content, so many brands that we're exposed to all the time now. But it's really important to keep thinking about how we can do things differently, and we can stem from these ideas. The origin of an idea is that it's come from something. Nothing is original. We listen to music these days. How many songs have you heard on the radio that aren't a bloody rip-off of something else? Like, everything comes from something, and I think we're in a really exciting opportunity because of how fast it moves, that we can do some cool stuff. And I just don't think maybe it's a confidence thing, I don't know. But there are opportunities. I would agree with you in terms of having a mentor. I think if you're in an organisation where there's no one more senior than you can learn from, that was definitely probably my biggest mistake. And then having a mentor, having someone that you can bounce ideas off of and just learn things, because the reality is with organic social, it's actually like, if you want to be, it's like consumer behaviour. When you think about it, right? It's not actually, it's a combination of marketing and consumer behaviour. You're understanding how people are responding to certain messages, and you're understanding their buying patterns, and there are so many other elements. So don't just think that having a conversation with someone who might not work in this industry isn't of value. I think staying curious and having conversations with as many people as possible is, and even understanding, like I said, what was the last thing they bought and why did they buy it? What made them buy it? What social accounts do they follow? There are so many things you can talk about.
Sorry, if I could go back and give myself one piece of advice, it would be to start a YouTube channel. We're all sleeping on it. I swear to you. Truly, brands are not utilising it enough. Sorry.
I agree. No, you heard it here first.
Who had a question back here?
Oh, I did, and now I have two.
We gave her time to think.
Hello.
I just on what you said about a YouTube channel. So we have a Vimeo. Sorry, I'm Jodie from Merlin. We're filming tonight. So we have a Vimeo channel, and like, I don't know, people don't seem to go on Vimeo binges the way they go on a YouTube binge, like kind of thing. But also, like, really what we're posting is work that we've done or behind the scenes of things that we've done, which, you know, maybe mightn't have too many views, so whatever. It's just a platform for us. But what my real question is like, we shoot so many miscellaneous things. This morning we were shooting a government thing. Tonight we're here. Tomorrow we're shooting something that's going to be part of a gallery exhibition. Last week we were doing an adventure show. Like, we've got such a miscellaneous amount of stuff. So all we can really do is go, hey, here's the stuff that we're shooting. Do you want us to shoot stuff for you? Like, all we have is marketing because all of our stuff is so miscellaneous.
You think that's all you have?
Great. Expand.
I charge $195 plus GST now. No, in your head, you're thinking it and going, this is just stuff that we're shooting. To someone else, they want to understand, how did you get that shot? What did it take? How much gear did you have? What was the actual setup of the night? What was the concept of the night? Can you do a Q&A with someone while you're already on location with someone? You know, think about other content opportunities within that moment that aren't just, here's an event we shot.
Yeah, okay, because we've got that, and we'll try and do a bit of a thing about, here we are, we're doing this thing, but I feel like we're only selling like what we can.
Ask yourself 3 things, and I think Caitlin touched on this before. You're either entertaining, you're either making someone laugh or smile. It can be as simple as that. You're either adding really high value, so maybe it is something technical, maybe it was a really difficult job, or maybe you're making someone feel seen or heard.
Yeah, cool.
Why are you putting it on Vimeo and not TikTok?
Because I'm older than TikTok.
No, not true. No. It's not true. TikTok has such a wide demographic now. It's not just a stereotype of young people. There's an audience for literally everyone on there. TikTok just has a bigger audience. It's easy to, I would say, use YouTube, but YouTube is the hardest one to crack into because it's the best one, arguably. But you can still try it. Well, YouTube Shorts are just a copycat.
In the place where it's like, well, people with businesses who are going to be engaging us, people with money, like it's not going to be teens watching. Yeah?
Businesses aren't going to be going, I'm looking for a videographer to run my event. It's someone who works in a marketing or a comms team going, we need to use Merlin because they did this really cool thing and I love their content.
Also, you should be putting them on Instagram Reels and you should be putting them on TikTok and making sure that you have a bunch of keywords in there because both platforms are used. It's proven now for SEO purposes. So if I'm going to a place, I will search the cafe and look for it on TikTok and Instagram. People do the same thing for video services. I had someone within government say, hey, I've checked out Instagram for some local videographers. Do you know any? So people are using it as the yellow pages.
That's really good to know because I didn't know that. Thank you.
TikTok is the best. We're not allowed to use it in government though.
Yeah, you don't have it even on your devices.
It's banned for Australian government, so we can't use it on. I can't open it on my work laptop or anything like that. Yeah. But I used it on my personal phone. Follow me. It's very niche.
Do we have any other questions?
You can take this one. I would be curious to know, throughout all of your careers, if there was a memorable campaign or a favourite campaign that you worked on. What was it and why?
The best one I ever worked on was at BuzzFeed, and it was a personal project. It was what it's like to lose someone to suicide. I wanted to use the platform because at the time it was massive on YouTube, and I really wanted to use that audience for good. So I started and helped produce a video called "What It's Like to Lose Someone to Suicide." Had over 1 million views, but more importantly, a lot of comments were saying things like, I watched this and now I want to stay alive. So things like that were really, really important to me. That's the one that sticks with me the most. Favorite personal one is where I did a TikTok on why the Wiggles are Fleetwood Mac for kids, and it got nearly 1 million views. Very different.
So recently, not quite to the same level as those. I don't know if anyone knows a cycling brand called Rapha. Does anyone? Yeah. So we did a collaboration with them for the Tour de France. So they're probably one of the biggest cycling brands in the world. We teamed up with their Australian office and we produced a pack of wine that followed the tour around. It kind of wasn't sanctioned by Rapha UK to start with, and we produced, well, it was like a local thing with the Australian Rapha, but we produced all the collateral and did a bunch of, like, made all this stuff, a lot of stuff. And anyway, got back to the owner of Rapha and he saw it and he said, you got to put our name on it. And so we had to reprint everything, but anyway, that was cool. And so basically they wanted their name all over our little wine store's collateral. And so we put that out there. They promoted it worldwide. And yeah, it was a success. I think we moved like 100 or so 6-packs, but they're sort of like $500 each for the wines because they're all fancy French ones. So that one was a success. And probably another one that sticks out was back in the AFL days, we did a collaboration with a Chinese KOL called Savvy's Look. We made a collection for her and it broke the internet for us. It was back in the days when you had to manage your own servers on e-commerce stores, not like Shopify now where they do it all for you. Like I had to talk to the server people and we had Google Analytics real time up there, launched the collection, and I was just watching the numbers go up and it was like 1,000 people on site, 2,000, 3,000. I went and got a whiskey from the boss's office, 9 a.m. and stood there looking at the thing. Anyway, and I won't say the number of dollary-doos that went in that day, but it was insane, and it was just pretty crazy to see what actual influencers can do. Yeah.
In that time, so that would have been like, what, 2018, 2019?
Yeah, 17, 18, yeah. And like in China, it was next level. So that stood out.
For me, I think it was about 6 or 7 years ago, working with an aged care provider. They were launching a service for the LGBTQI, that's right, community, and it was all about the community ageing and how they transition from their homes into aged care and nursing home, that sort of assisted living. We spent, I think it was about 2 weeks with 4 or 5 members of this group that were going to be effectively the leaders for this campaign and contact people for all of these people in the community. And it was really like intimate testimonial, hearing their stories, understanding their struggles, and tears every day with some of these stories. But we actually launched the campaign on social, which that sensitive content is almost unheard of, and the response was just so positive. And it was just one of those really emotional, heartfelt, like we say, building connection with people campaign to be a part of, and I don't see it done often enough.
Once a capitalist changing lives.
Any other questions? I think we're done. Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Hope you enjoyed yourself.
Just quick, do you have anything else you wanted to say? Do you have anything else you wanted to close with before I just say a few thank yous? Well, no, if anyone has any other questions, we'll be heading over into the other room just after this as well. So feel free to come and talk to everyone. I think we'll pick their brains a little bit. I sure will. Thank you guys for tonight. Carly, Jared and Caitlin, thank you for being here. Yeah, really great conversation. I know that my marketing coordinator, Emma, and I are going to be talking about this tomorrow a lot, so it's good. Natalie, thank you so much for tonight, not only for being a facilitator, but for the collaboration between She Creates and Social Club. I don't think this will be the last one, something in the future maybe. And so She Creates events wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. So we've got our major sponsor, Peach, our partner sponsors, Merlin, who are obviously here tonight, Cluse & Co and Alice Healy. Our event sponsors for tonight, 23rd Street Gin, which I think you've got a little something in your bags, Federal, our venue here, and Stepney Studios, who are taking the photos here tonight. And lastly, thank you to all of you for being here tonight, whether you follow She Creates or the Social Club or it's your first event. Thank you for coming along. Please keep in contact. I hope that you leave inspired and you meet someone new. And that's about it, guys. Should say, She Creates, we've got our next event coming up in October, which is one of our NetWalk events, micro networking events. So if you don't love this sort of big environments, probably about 20 people, we go for a bit of a walk around the park, which is a great way to get to know people. And you've got something coming up maybe in December?
December will be an end of year networking, drinking, if you work in social, come say hi. We'll be very chilled.
Great. We've got something similar happening in December too, so make sure it's on the same date. Yeah, okay. If no one's got anything else, thank you everyone. Let's head over into the other room. Thanks.